Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Miranda. I'm a homeschooling mom to two, and I am obsessed with all things books. So if you're anything like me, or your child is, you are a fan of Harry Potter, you've read all the books, and now you're wondering, where do we go from here? Because it can be a hard bridge to cross. When you finish Harry Potter, it can kind of seem hopeless because, you get invested in these characters and you want something similar. Without being a copycat. So I'm going to be giving 5 recommendations of books/series that I definitely recommend if you or your child is a Harry Potter fan and is looking for something new. So I'm not going to be including anything that's already gotten the Hollywood treatment or is already huge in of its own right. So no Narnia, no Percy Jackson, honestly no Rick Riordan at all because he's ginormous now. So not including any of that kind of stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, my son Jude is now apparently accompanying us on this video today because he was not about to have nap time while I was filming today. So he's just going to join us. So the first and strongest recommendation I have in this list is The Marvelers by Danielle Clayton. This one is so good. It is what I would say is the closest to being the next Harry Potter. I don't really like saying that because I don't think anything is going to be Harry Potter again. It was so big, so unique at the time. It's just, I don't think it'll be, copied anytime soon. But this gave me the closest vibes to Harry Potter while being equally fantastic and well written in its own right. It is about a young girl named Ella, she is a conjurer. And it's a little bit different than how you would think of magic in terms of how Harry Potter presents it and typical fantasy presents magic. It relates a lot to folklore and actual history. It does relate a lot to slaves coming over from Africa, and she lives in New Orleans, and a lot to do with the culture of New Orleans with the voodoo and stuff like that. And it's just really interesting how she ties that in. Anyway, Ella goes to a school for marvelers, and marvelers and conjurers are different. They use magic any different way from each other. The marvelers kind of put themselves above conjurers. Conjurers have a lot to do with the undertaking of the dead and the underworld, and they do not believe they should be intermixing. And it is the first year that they are allowing conjurers to attend this school for marvelers. And it is really good. They do kind of like a sorting process, if you're familiar with the sorting hat in Harry Potter. They save their sorting for the end of the year, which is really interesting, into their different strengths. So it's not inherent necessarily. It's where your strengths lie. And it is just really good. I really loved it. It has a unique villain and some really unique characters. It is exceptional with representation and diversity. I love Harry Potter, but there is no denying it is not a very diverse or representative series. It's very white. It's very, it's very homogenous, and this is not that way at all. There's students from all around the world, from all different backgrounds, cultures, races, identities, everything, and it's just so good at that. And I think it's a really great improvement upon the genre to include people who haven't been previously represented in these kind of series before. So that is excellent. So highly recommend The Marvelers for your Harry Potter lovers at home. Okay, second up on this list is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. You are probably familiar with this. This has been getting a lot of hype on social media. It is also very good. I talked about it in a previous video briefly. This is about a young girl whose brother worked at a supernatural agency, and she has found out upon him being missing and he has invited her to also join the Bureau of Supernatural Investigations, and it is so good. It is just really unique. I really like that it takes a whole different perspective on magical beings, and includes a lot more than the typical fantasy series would with supernatural things. It kind of is more government based instead of schooling based. Not that there isn't schooling aspects to this. The whole story is about her making these trials in order to pursue whatever field she wants, which happens to be an agent. I don't know why it took me so long to say that. An agent, and which has all the action in the Bureau. So it is really more career focused instead of schooling, but it is along those similar lines of different factions and different departments and such. It is another one that is exceptional at representation and diverse characters, really an improvement upon days past, and it is really very interesting. A lot of people have been saying this is the next Harry Potter. I think Marvelers is a little closer to what Harry Potter is in terms of being a school and such, but this does have that feel with the friend group she has and such, and the villains, I should say, are very similar, in my opinion, to Harry Potter in this. So another great option for Harry Potter lovers. Okay, so our next recommendation is very, very different, but very, very good. It is Zachary, Ying, and the Dragon Emperor by Ziran J. Zhao, and it is so interesting. It incorporates a lot of Chinese mythology and history, while being a middle grade fantasy. It is more closely aligned, in my opinion, to Percy Jackson than Harry Potter, probably. But, you know, usually when kids like one, they usually like the other. So I included it in this grouping because it is still fairly magical. So it is about a boy named Zachary. He is a Chinese American middle schooler. And he has this gaming headset that allows him to see different demons and creatures and such. I kind of envision Pokemon Go, if you're familiar with that. And it is a game to begin with, but he eventually sees different ancestors, his own ancestors, as well as other ancient Chinese historical figures, and he has to go on this mission in order to save his mom. And he meets other characters along the way. There's different Chinese mythological creatures he has to fight and people, real figures from history, which is really interesting, but in a personified mythological kind of shape of them. It is so unique. I really loved this. Another one that's exceptional with inclusion in its writing and characters, and I am just really impressed by this. It is very different than anything I've read personally, and nothing I've read introduces Chinese mythology and history so well like this, in my opinion. So highly recommend Zachary, Ying. There are definitely more books to follow, but they just haven't been released yet, and I'm so excited to see where it goes. Okay, and my next fourth recommendation is something that's gotten very popular in previous years, but I included it anyway because it has not yet been made into a movie or a show or anything, and you may not have seen it yet. It is Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow. This has sequels now. I think we're waiting on the fourth book now already. It is really good. So it is about a girl named Morgan, and she is blamed for everything going wrong in her community because of the day she was born. And on her 11th birthday, she is introduced to a city called Nevermore, and she is competing to gain a spot in what's called the Wondrous Society. And it is full of magic and danger and different trials she has to complete. And it is very interesting. The villain is very Voldemort-esque, in my opinion. So it reminded me quite a bit of that. It is very good. The characters are very charming. I've just really enjoyed these. I have not read all the books in the series yet, or the other two, I should say. I just read the first book, so I can't speak to the second and third and the upcoming fourth, but the first one was very impressive to me. It, once again, just was a really good take on magical societies and discrimination within magical societies, in my opinion. So really, really liked Nevermore. Okay, so my fifth and final recommendation of this group is Witchlings by Claribel A. Ortega. It approaches magic in a very different way than my previous recommendations, or Harry Potter even. It brings witchcraft back to its original roots. So kids are placed in a coven, and they are different covens depending on their characteristics, traits, etc. Kind of like Hogwarts houses in that way. And it centers around a girl named Seven, who is desperately hoping to be placed in a particular coven, but upon the sorting ceremony, she is cast as a spare. And spares are considered outcasts. They don't fit in with any particular coven. And there's 3 of them on the cover here. And the binding spell that usually binds coven members to each other doesn't work because she doesn't accept her place in her spare coven. And that means she cannot advance to learn witchcraft and will always be stuck as a witchling who can't use magic. And that is a very bad place to be in her society and is very looked down upon, and they're heavily discriminated against. So she invokes what is called the impossible task, meaning she requests to complete an impossible task in order to revoke the spell and move on from being a witchling, despite the spell not working to bind her coven. So these 3 in their spare coven are working to fell what is called a night beast, or take one down, rather, I should say. And it is very, very cute, very interesting. I liked that it takes such a different approach to magic. I thought that was very different and unique, and I really liked that. It is a little younger written, in my opinion, than the other ones I've suggested. Not that the content is so much younger, it's just I feel like the dialogue and such is geared towards a little bit younger audience. Not that that's a bad thing at all for kids, but just so you're aware going into it. I do really like it. I think it's very, very cute and charming. But it is very different than the other ones I've suggested, but still I think worth a read. Okay, so they were my 5 recommendations I have if you're in a Harry Potter slump or your child is. I know it's hard to come out of that slump when you read Harry Potter for the first time, especially as a kid. So hopefully these can get you and your child out of that slump. Like I said before, I'm not really a fan of when people say something is the next Harry Potter, because I don't like when things copy, and there have been a lot of copycats throughout the years, believe me, but I think these are all unique in their own right and all deserve a place on your TBR. Let me know down below if you've read any of these. Have you read any others that are similar that deserve a read? Let me know. Otherwise, you can head over to my Instagram. I am posting there daily, and I will be back with another video very soon. Bye-bye.